The call came at 6:47 inches the morning, and I almost didn't answer it. I was already in the garage, loading 2 boxes of my wife's old china into the back of my truck. My daughter had asked me to bring them down when I visited, said she wanted to use them for Thanksgiving dinner, said it would mean a lot to have something of her mother's on the table. That had been 3 weeks ago. I kept putting off the 4-hour drive, kept telling myself I'd go next weekend, then the weekend after that. But that Tuesday morning I woke up before the alarm, looked at the ceiling, thought about my wife, thought about my daughter, and decided I was going. I didn't call ahead. I thought I'd surprise her. Bring the china. Maybe take her and Marcus out to dinner somewhere nice. She'd been sounding tired on the phone lately, a little distant. I figured she just needed to see her father's face. So when the phone rang, and I saw it was Marcus, my son-in-law, calling at 6:47 inches the morning, something in my chest shifted before I even pressed the green button. "Dad," he said. He always called me Dad. From the day he married my daughter 11 years ago, never once called me anything else. "Dad, don't come this weekend. Sarah's not feeling well. She doesn't want visitors." I stood there with a box of china in my arms and thought about how he said the word visitors, not company, not anyone over. Visitors. Like I was a stranger. "Is she all right?" I asked. "She's fine. Just tired. You know how she gets." I did know how she got. My daughter had struggled with anxiety since she was a teenager, had good stretches and hard ones. But something about his voice that morning didn't match the words he was saying. The words said everything was fine. His voice said something else entirely. "All right," I told him. "I'll wait." I hung up and stood in the garage for a long moment. Then I set the china back down, went inside, poured myself a second cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table thinking about the way he'd said her name, Sarah. Just one syllable. Flat. Like he was reading it off a list. I waited 2 hours. I called my daughter's cell phone at 9 o'clock. It rang 7 times and went to voicemail. I called again at 10. Same thing. At 10:30 I texted her. A simple message. "Just thinking about you. Call me when you can." The message showed, delivered. It never showed read. By 11, I had the truck running and the china back in the bed. I will tell you I drove carefully, because I am 63 years old and I have been driving for 47 years, and I know better than to be reckless on a highway. But I will also tell you that I did not stop for food. I did not stop for gas until the light came on, and I covered those 4 hours in 3.5. Sarah and Marcus lived in a neighborhood just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. The kind of neighborhood with big oak trees and mailboxes at the end of long driveways. Their house sat back from the road behind a row of arborvitae that my daughter had planted herself the year they moved in. I had helped her plant them. We'd spent a whole Saturday afternoon in the dirt together, the 2 of us, while Marcus was at a work conference somewhere. She'd been so proud of those trees. I turned into the driveway just after 2:30 in the afternoon. The arborvitaes had grown tall enough now that I couldn't see the front door until I was nearly at the house, which is why I almost didn't see the woman standing on the porch. She was maybe 50, heavy-set, wearing a blue fleece jacket with a cleaning company logo on the chest. She had a mop bucket beside her and a ring of keys in her hand. And the moment she saw my truck come around the curve of the driveway, she stepped off that porch and started walking toward me with a speed that didn't match how still the rest of the afternoon was. I stopped the truck and rolled down my window. "Are you family?" she said before I even had the door open. Not a greeting, not a question. More like a test. "I'm her father," I said. She put her hand on the door of my truck. "Don't go in that house," she said. "Please. I don't know what's happening in there, but something is very wrong and I don't know who to trust." Her name was Dolores. She had been cleaning Sarah and Marcus's house every other Tuesday for 4 years. She knew my daughter's routines, knew what a normal Tuesday looked like in that house. And the Tuesday she was describing to me was not normal. She said Sarah had been in the bedroom when she arrived, which wasn't unusual. But when she knocked to let her know she was there, Sarah hadn't answered the way she normally did. The door was unlocked. She had pushed it open just a few inches and called out, and Sarah had responded in a voice that Dolores described as like a person trying to talk through water. Slow, thick, wrong. She said she asked Sarah if she needed anything, and Sarah had said no. She was fine. She just needed to sleep. Dolores said she stood in that hallway for a full minute after that, just listening to the sound of Sarah's breathing, before she decided something was wrong enough to wait outside. She's been in there 5 hours, Dolores said. I knocked again an hour ago, and she didn't answer at all. I was about to call the police when I saw your truck. Why didn't you call 911? I asked. She looked at me steadily. Because the husband called while I was cleaning the kitchen. Said he'd be home in an hour. Said Sarah was fine. Said she was just sleeping off a migraine and not to disturb her. She paused. He called to tell me not to disturb her. He's never done that before. Not in 4 years. I was out of the truck before she finished the sentence. I want to tell you, I was calm going up those porch steps. But that would be a lie. My hands were not shaking, but everything behind my ribs was. My daughter's front door has a keypad, and I punched in the code she'd given me 2 Christmases ago, her mother's birthday, month and year, and thanked God it still worked. The house was quiet and dark, curtains drawn. That particular kind of still that houses have when something has gone wrong inside them. I called her name going down the hallway. Once, twice. The third time I was already pushing open the bedroom door. She was in the bed, covers pulled up to her chin, and if you were standing in the doorway she might have looked like she was sleeping. But I have sat beside hospital beds. I have watched a person I loved with my whole life fight to stay in this world. I know what a person looks like when their body is working too hard just to keep breathing. I knew it the moment I saw my daughter's face. I called 911 and then I called her name again. And this time she opened her eyes. Daddy, she said. Just that. Just the word. Like she was 6 years old again and had woken up from a bad dream. I'm here, I told her. I've got you. Don't move. The paramedics were there in 9 minutes. I know, because I counted. Dolores stood at the end of the driveway and waved them in, and I stayed beside my daughter and held her hand and listened to her breathe and did not think about anything else in the world except keeping her with me. The emergency room physician was a young woman, couldn't have been more than 35, with the kind of directness I have always respected in doctors. She came and found me in the waiting room 40 minutes after they took Sarah back, and she sat down across from me and she did not soften what she had to say. Your daughter has been sedated, she said. Not naturally. There are drugs in her system. A combination of sedatives at a level that is not consistent with any prescribed dosage. If she had slept another 3 to 4 hours without intervention, we would likely be having a different conversation. I heard the words. I understood them. I sat very still and understood them. She couldn't have taken them herself? I asked. The doctor looked at me in a way that answered the question before she said it. The levels and the combinations suggest this was not self-administered. I've already contacted the police. Marcus arrived at the hospital at 5:14 the evening. I was standing in the hallway outside Sarah's room when I saw him come through the double doors from the parking lot. He was wearing his work clothes, a gray blazer, looking like a man who had just had a long day at the office. He saw me and stopped walking. There is a particular look a person gets when they find someone where they did not expect to find them. A calculation that runs behind the eyes. I saw it in Marcus's face from 40 feet away. Dad, he said, walking toward me. I didn't know you were coming. I know, I said. He asked about Sarah. He said all the right things. He sat in the chair beside her bed and held her hand, and when the detective came to ask him questions, he answered them in a calm, cooperative voice, the voice of a man with nothing to hide. He said he had no idea. He said he was devastated. He said he would do anything to help. My daughter slept. The machines beside her bed made their steady sounds. I drove to a motel 3 miles from the hospital that night, and I sat on the edge of the bed and I thought about things. I thought about the phone call at 6:47 the morning. I thought about the word visitors. I thought about the way Marcus had called while Dolores was cleaning, specifically to tell her not to disturb Sarah. I thought about the timing if I hadn't decided that morning to make the drive, if I had listened to him and stayed home, if Dolores hadn't been the kind of woman who trusted her instincts enough to wait in a driveway instead of driving away. I thought about my daughter's life insurance policy, which I had helped her set up 14 years ago, before she was married, and which she had mentioned to me 6 months ago, had been updated. New beneficiary, she'd said. Marcus had asked her to put his name as primary. I thought about the house, which was in Sarah's name from an inheritance from her grandmother. I thought about their finances, which my daughter had mentioned obliquely in a phone call 2 months ago. Something about Marcus's consulting business not doing well. Something about debt she hadn't known about. By morning, I had a list of things I needed to find out, and I was already making calls. The detective assigned to Sarah's case was a man named Garrett, broad-shouldered and methodical, the kind of investigator who takes notes by hand and never seems to be in a hurry. I met with him the morning after Sarah was admitted, and I told him everything. The early phone call, the instruction to Dolores, the insurance policy, the finances. I told him calmly. I did not make accusations. I gave him facts and let him do his job. He listened to everything I said without interrupting, and when I finished, he nodded slowly and said, "We're already looking at the husband." It took 11 days. During those 11 days, Sarah recovered. The sedatives cleared her system, and the color came back to her face, and she started asking questions, careful, quiet questions, the kind a person asks when they already know part of the answer and are bracing for the rest of it. I answered her honestly when I could and held her hand when I couldn't, and she cried the kind of crying that comes from somewhere very deep, not from sadness exactly, but from the exhaustion of a truth you have been carrying without knowing it. She told me things during those 11 days that I had not known. Small things at first, then larger ones. The way Marcus had changed over the past 2 years, the financial pressures he never quite explained, the arguments that always circled around the same subjects, money, the house, her grandmother's jewelry. What would happen if something happened to her? She told me about a night 3 months ago when she had woken up feeling strange and heavy and had assumed it was her anxiety medication. She had taken herself to her doctor, who had adjusted her prescription. She had not connected it to anything. I did not tell her what I was thinking when she told me that. I just listened. On the 12th day, Detective Garrett called me at 7 in the morning. "We have him," he said. The evidence was meticulous. The way evidence is when someone has been careful but not careful enough. Marcus had purchased the sedatives, a specific combination of prescription drugs using a method he believed was untraceable, through an online pharmacy that required no verification, with a prepaid card he had bought at a gas station 40 miles from his office. What he had not accounted for was the gas station's security camera, or the pharmacy's IP logs, or the fact that his own laptop had connected to the pharmacy's website twice from the home network. He had done it before. That was the part that stopped my breath in my chest when Garrett told me. Not just the morning I had driven down. At least twice before. Smaller doses, testing. The morning I arrived had been meant to be the last time. The insurance policy was worth $1.2 million. The house, appraised at just over $800,000. His consulting business had nearly $400,000 in debt that Sarah had not known existed. Marcus was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder in the first degree and 1 count of poisoning. Among other charges, his attorney entered a plea of not guilty. That plea did not survive contact with the evidence. He accepted a deal 9 months later, 22 years. No parole consideration for the first 18. The prosecutor had wanted to go to trial. I understood that. But Sarah did not want to testify. She had already testified in the only courtroom that mattered to her, the one inside herself, and she had already delivered the verdict. I respected her decision completely. The morning the sentence was handed down, I drove back to Asheville, not to the house Sarah had moved out months before, was staying in a rental apartment close to the hospital where she had found a job. I drove to the neighborhood anyway, turned down the familiar road with its oak trees and its long driveways, and stopped at the end of hers. The arbor vitae had grown another few inches, tall and dark green and very straight. She had planted them herself, my daughter, while I stood beside her passing her tools and telling her to space them evenly. She had been so precise about it. She had measured the distance between each one with a tape measure and leveled every hole before she planted. I sat in the truck for a moment and looked at them. Then I drove to her apartment and rang the bell, and she came down and opened the door, and I hugged her in the doorway for a long time without saying anything. And she let me, and neither of us needed to say what we were thinking. I want to tell you that there is a clean feeling on the other side of something like this. That justice is a door you walk through, and the room on the other side is bright and simple. I have learned, at 63, that it is not quite like that. The room on the other side is quieter, which is its own kind of gift, and the light is steadier, which matters more than brightness. My daughter is rebuilding her life with the patience and precision she has always brought to everything she does. She measures carefully. She levels the ground before she plants anything. Dolores still cleans houses in that neighborhood. Sarah sent her a letter when it was over, a real letter, on paper, handwritten. I don't know exactly what it said. That was between them. But I know Dolores received it because she called Sarah to say thank you. And Sarah called me afterward and said simply, she cried. I cried. It was good. There is one more thing. About a month after the sentencing, I was cleaning out some boxes in my basement, the ones I had never gotten around to unpacking since my wife passed 4 years ago. And I found a card my daughter had made me when she was 8 years old. Construction paper, crayon, slightly lopsided letters. It said, "You are the best dad because you always come." She had drawn a picture underneath the words that I think was meant to be the two of us, though at that age her drawings of people all looked roughly the same. I sat on the basement floor for a while with that card in my hands. She was right that I always came. I came when she needed me, even when I didn't know she needed me, even when someone told me not to. I drove 4 hours on a Tuesday morning because something in my chest said to go, and I went. And my daughter is alive. There are things in this life I do not understand and cannot explain. I don't try to explain them anymore. I just try to answer the call when it comes. Even at 6:47 the morning, even when the words say everything is fine. Especially then.